Hello there, and welcome to the WOW presentation. I know you have heard some incredible speakers, or if you haven't yet, you're in store for that. My name is Velton Showell, and I'm here today to talk to you about transformation. Transform your thinking, and you can transform your world. You know, many years ago when I started my sales career, I really wanted to excel. I wanted to be a sales professional. And at the time, I didn't really understand what it took. And at the time that I started and asked the question, what do I need to do? How do I get to where I want to go? I was met with apprehension. I was met with people who said, Felton, we just don't think you're sales material. We don't think you have what it takes. And you know, that's a humbling experience. That's something that each and every one of us deals with in our lifetime. At some point in our life, we're rejected. Think about the last time that you wanted something. You wanted a position, you wanted a relationship, you wanted to talk to someone, or maybe even purchase a car or a home, and someone said, you're not qualified. We don't think you're ready. You have to dig deep. You had to think, and you had to regroup. And that's what happened to me. That's what happens to all of us at some point in our lives. We have to regroup. We have to rethink things, and we have to change. And you know, one of my favorite sayings that I've adopted as a mantra is transform your thinking and you can transform your world. And as you go through that process, the first thing that you have to do is change. You have to change something about you, what you do, how you do it, the people that you associate with, the knowledge that you have, the skill set that you have. And you know, I was sitting outside a couple of weeks ago and I was watching the little girl next door. And she rides her bike or was learning to ride a bike. And she started with a tricycle. You know, and a tricycle is only able to take you so far. And she rode around her driveway. She rode back and forth and up and down. But she would stop and watch the kids, the older kids, ride up and down the street with their two-wheel bikes. They were hitting it. They were going fast. They were having a good time. They were laughing and joking. And all she could do is sit on the side and watch. You know, in our lives, many times we want to play at the higher level. We want to perform at another level, but we don't have the knowledge base or the skill set yet that will allow us to play at that level. And we have to take the time to regroup. We have to take the time to practice, to bring ourselves to a level that will allow us to perform in the format that we really want to. And this little girl decided that it was time that she stepped up. And her dad brought her her first two-wheel bike. And she was overjoyed and she was happy and she just couldn't wait to get on that bike. And she got up on the bike and she started to pedal. And she looked down and she saw something that made her comfortable, training wheels. You know, I talked about my sales career and when I started. When I started as a salesperson and the training and getting me ready, I had other salespeople that were helping me. They were guiding me. They were teaching me. And they were helping me develop into an independent salesperson. And they were like those training wheels that little girl had. Those training wheels were helping her develop her skills, gain her balance, gain the understanding of what it took to transition from a tricycle to a two-wheel bike. And as she rode with her training wheel, she became more and more confident. And I remember looking at her and thinking how, as I went through the training exercises, I became more confident and more comfortable as a sales professional. But the one thing that I also remembered was the comfort of having someone else who knew a little bit more than I did, or sometimes knew a lot more than I did, help me. This little girl had daddy. You know, all little girls love having daddy around. I know my daughter does, and those of you who have daughters know how they are with their daddy. And daddy was helping her develop, just like those salespeople were helping me develop. And daddy would guide her and talk to her and teach her. And at one point, daddy removed the training wheels because he recognized that his little girl was ready to take it to the next level, ready to do what she had dreamed of doing. So daddy removed the training wheels and he continued to teach, to guide, to help her develop. And as she developed, she became more confident. She became more independent. She started to ride faster, and as a salesperson, I remember myself taking a step, doing a little bit more, not waiting for my guide and my helpers to be there to help me. And this little girl continued to grow. But every now and then, she would turn around and she'd look for daddy's hand on the back of that seat and say, "Hey, daddy, you got me? Are you holding on? Because without you, I'm uncomfortable." How many times in your life do you step out there? Do you really push ahead? Do you push the envelope and go beyond the norm? Zig Ziglar had a saying that I love, and it says, "Fear has killed more dreams than failure ever could." And this little girl had a dream of riding in the street with the other kids, but fear kept her looking behind her, looking for daddy's hand on the back of that seat, so that if she faltered, if she swerved, if she fell, that he would catch her. And every now and then daddy would let go, and every now and again she'd fall. And she'd get up, she'd turn around, look at daddy and say, "Hey, you're supposed to catch me." And daddy said to her, "You're okay. Get back on." When life knocks you down, there are going to be days where you're going to have to get up, brush yourself off, and get back on and get to riding. And that's what this little girl did. She got up, got back on her bike, and started riding. Another one of my favorite quotes says that you don't drown by falling in the water. You drown by staying there. And if she hadn't gotten back up and brushed herself off and got back on that bike, she would have never learned how to take her performance to the next level. You need to get up, brush yourself off, get back on that bike and ride and take your performance to the next level. That's what change is all about. And as you change, you transform. And there are 3 additional points to transformation. The first of the 4 is change. The second is commitment. Because when you start to change, you have to understand that everybody's not going to understand the changes that you're going through. There are going to be naysayers. There are going to be people who tell you that you don't need to do that. You don't need to change. You should stay where you are because you're doing a great job. There are people all over this country that go to work every day. But before they go to work, they get up in the morning and they have a headache. They have a headache, they're sick, they take their blood pressure medicine, they hate their job. They don't like what they do, but they're not willing to change. They're not willing to commit to something else because they're comfortable. Think about people that you know that retire from a job, and every day you ask them, how's work? Oh, I hate it. I don't like it. You say, well, why do you go? Well, it's a job and I make good money. I'm here to tell you that there's a better way and a commitment to living your dream will take you and transform you to a new life. You know, I remember a good friend of mine. His name was Rick, and Rick had a dream. At the time that Rick started to implement his dream, he was a top general manager in the hotel industry. He was the general manager of one of the most successful hotels in the United States, a hotel that was running almost 90% occupancy on an annual basis. But Rick was unfulfilled. He wanted something different. He was the general manager, but he had a boss. He had someone he had to report to, but he wanted to be independent. He wanted to be his own boss, and he had a dream. And he sat down with his wife one day, and they started to develop a plan. And they started to talk about a different life in a different way. And many of his friends said, "You're crazy. I can't believe that you would even think about leaving your current situation." I know in my life, I've had to make commitment changes. I've had to do things that even my family came to me and said, "You must be nuts. I can't believe you're doing that." And that's what was happening with Rick. That's what happens with you. You know it. I know it. Everybody knows it. Somebody in your life is going to tell you that it's not meant for you. And guess what? They can't see your dreams because it's not theirs. They were not given that dream to birth that dream. It was yours. It was bestowed upon you. And the story about Rick goes like this. Rick decided to quit his job as the general manager of a major hotel. Six-figure salary. That's why people thought he was crazy. He was making six figures, and we're talking probably 25, almost 30 years ago. Unheard of money, but it wasn't fulfilling. He quit his job, and he started a small clothing store. And he started this small clothing store in Baltimore, Maryland. You know, Tony Gaskins has a quote that says, "If you don't take the time to build your dream, someone else will hire you to build theirs." And that's the situation that Rick was in. Someone had hired him to build their dream, but he wanted to birth his own dream. So he set off to start this store in the Inner Harbor of Baltimore, Maryland. Anybody who knows anything about the Inner Harbor of Baltimore, Maryland, back in the 80s and 90s, tourism in that destination was second to Disney World in the country. So he had a built-in market, but it was an area that was full of other boutique stores. So his specialty was women's clothing that was all white. All white women's clothing in Baltimore, Maryland, where 7 months of the year it's cold. Now you know why people said he was crazy. But this man was driven. He was focused. He knew what he wanted to do. And he set out and he started this store. And the store, when I tell you the name of the store, you'll understand the commitment that this man went through. The store was called the White House. Yes, now known as White House Black Market across the country. If he had listened to the people, the naysayers who said, Rick, you're crazy to even think about leaving your current situation, this store, this dream would have never been birthed. He would probably still be a very successful general manager going to a job on a daily basis that he was not being fulfilled in. I say to you, if you have a dream, commit to your dream. Don't let anyone tell you that you can't do what you're destined to do. You can't live the life that you want to live because you have the tools. You have what it takes to be whoever and whatever you want to be. But there are things that you have to change and commitments that you have to make. The third of the 4 C's, as I call them, is confidence. You have to have the confidence in yourself and your abilities to be successful when other people don't think you are. Reminds me of the story of Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan, one of the greatest basketball players to ever lace up his sneakers, was cut from his junior high school basketball team. You know, I smile every time I tell this story because I would not want to be the coach who was responsible for cutting Michael Jordan. I don't think you would either. And I don't think he's around publicizing who he is. But think about it. Michael went home and he had a choice to make. He could have sat back and wallowed in his own sorrow. He could have tasted those bitter lemons and just sulked and never played basketball again. But Michael had confidence. And if you hear him speak to this day, he exudes confidence. He knew that he was destined to be great. He had, as my mentor Les Brown said, greatness within him. He took the time, devoted himself to getting better. He was confident that if he practiced, if he did the right things, he could take those bitter lemons and make lemonade. And the next year he went out and he made the varsity basketball team. And the year after that, he was a star. And soon a star at the University of North Carolina. And the rest is history. He was drafted by the Chicago Bulls, took them to 6 championships, MVP multiple years, all-star, leading scorer, all because he was confident in his ability and did not allow other people to create his destiny. You know, there's another saying that I really love that says, don't let other people's opinion of you become your reality. You have the ability to unlock the door to your dreams. So now there you have it. You have courage, you have commitment, you have change, and you have confidence. I've spoken about confidence, I've spoken about change, and I've spoken about commitment. But you know deep down inside, the one thing that all of us have to have is courage. You have to be courageous. You have to be willing to do things that other people won't, to one day have the things that other people can't. Are you courageous? Are you willing to step out and do something different? I'll tell you, courage is something that is inside of you. It's inside of your heart. I sat in a workshop and seminar maybe a year ago, and I heard a story by a young lady named Liliana. And she has to be one of the most courageous people I've ever met. Liliana was a top performing salesperson in the pharmaceutical industry. She was every year in the President's Club. She was outperforming 80% of the other salespeople in her company. She was doing incredible things. She was invited to every major awards banquet, trip, workshop, you name it, she was there. And on this one occasion, she was invited to an affair in Atlanta, Georgia, and she drove from where she lived to Atlanta. Went to the dinner, got her award, and it was raining, tremendous rainstorm. But she had to drive home. She got in her vehicle, put her award in the back seat, started to drive home. And as she drove, it rained harder. Visibility became very, very poor. And as she drove, she could see in the distance the faint look of the lights of the car in front of her. And as she got closer, she saw the lights blinking. They were blinking back and forth. And as she got closer, she thought that they again went solid because the rain was distorting her view. And as she got closer, she realized that the car had stopped. It was broken down in the middle of the road. She swerved and hit a wall, hit a solid stone wall. That night, Liliana's life changed. That night, her courage shone like it had never done before. Liliana's car was totally destroyed. It was smashed to smithereens. They had to bring in the saws and cut her out of the car. She had to be airlifted from her vehicle to shock trauma. And as she lay in the bed a week and a half to 2 weeks later, she became conscious for the first time. And as she woke up, she saw the wires and the machines and the lights and heard that beeping sound that we hear with life support machines. She had a massive headache and her vision was totally blurred. But for one thing she realized is that her vision was one-sided. And as she woke and stirred, her family called the doctor. And the doctor came in and began to tell Liliana that she had been in a major car accident. She'd been in a coma for almost 2 weeks. She had lost an eye, and she had a metal plate that had been placed in her head. What an incredible situation. You know, courage shows up when life seems the most bleak. And in this particular instance, a lady who was a top performer, living the fast life, living the good life, outperforming her profession, receiving bonuses that you can only imagine as a top performing pharmaceutical salesperson. And all of it this night, this day, has changed. Well, Liliana told the story, and as she told the story, many people in the room, including myself, our eyes welled with tears. And as she told the story, she committed to her new vision and her new purpose in life. And her new vision and her new purpose in life took more courage than anything else. She had committed to now becoming a speaker, telling her story, telling other people that there's no reason not to live your dreams. There's no reason not to perform at the highest level. You have what's necessary to be the best that you can be. Life does not end just because you have hit a valley. We all have ups and downs in our lives. We all have situations where we've lost a job, we've lost a house, we've lost a loved one, we've lost a relationship because it just didn't work out. I know that many of us have been in situations, especially in the last few years with the economy going up and down, where we have lost our way. Some of us lost our jobs. Some of us lost our savings. Some of us lost everything that we had. And we look at things and say, how? Why me? Well, I'm here to tell you, when I heard Liliana's story, I thought about myself, and I thought about the times that I sat back and just wondered, why me? Why me? Why has this happened to me? And hearing her story, I said, how do you dare? How could you dare think that you cannot overcome anything that is put in your way? Here's a lady who had a touch with death, and she's now standing in front of you, telling her story and encouraging people to do whatever's necessary to be the best that they can be. So I say to you, I cannot ever complain about my situation. I have to pull myself up by my bootstraps and do whatever's necessary to move it to the next level. And I challenge each and every one of you to dig deep inside of yourselves, to find that intestinal fortitude, to find the courage, make the commitment, find the confidence to change your world, to change your life, to change your thinking, transform your performance from good to great. Stop settling for average and strive for outstanding. Because in each and every one of you, just like me, just like Liliana, just like Rick, just like that little girl next door who learned to ride the two-wheel bike, who now rides up and down the street with the big kids in our neighborhood. Only you can unlock the door to your dreams. Thank you for your time. I'm Velton Showell. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.